El 70.000 toneladas de metal es una increíble experiencia que ocurre a bordo de un barco en el cual al menos 60 agrupaciones, 3.000 personas navegan a través del Mar Caribe, desde las costas de Miami a diferentes puntos, y por sus tarimas han pasado agrupaciones del calibre de At the Gates, Venom, Sodom, Sepultura y muchísimas otras. Para hablar de este encuentro cultural, esta experiencia turística, o como ellos prefieren llamarlo, las Naciones Unidas del Metal, se encuentra con nosotros el mandamás de todo este increíble viaje marítimo, el señor Andy Piller. Bienvenido a Alejandrosis.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a real pleasure to have me on Alejandrosis. And it's also always a real pleasure to come to your beautiful country of Colombia. So nice people, amazing food. I'm always receiving such a warm welcome here. It really feels at home.
Wonderful. I know you are a very passionate fan of the metal, and you come from Europe, a well-known territory where place the biggest festivals of heavy metal in the world. Where come from the idea of taking one of those festivals, making a new one, and put over the water?
Do you want the short version or the long version?
What do you want, my friend?
Okay, I give you the long version. Try to not make it too long.
Okay.
So I grew up in Switzerland, and already at a very young age, when I was still in school, I started to organize concerts in Switzerland. My parents were not so happy about this because I was organizing concerts all over the country and then basically go back to school to sleep. So it became my profession. Eventually, I more became a booking agent, booking shows, not just in Switzerland, but also neighboring countries, in France, in Italy, in Austria, and so on. That led me to become a tour manager. Basically lived out on the road for 15 years, working with some Canadian bands, among them Annihilator and other ones from Vancouver. Traveled several times to Vancouver for pre-production, post-production, fell in love with that city there, and got a vacation apartment really close to the cruise ship here in Vancouver. In the summer, people think of Canada, it's cold, how can there be cruises? But there is cruises in the summer that go to Alaska. So 18 years ago, I was sitting on my balcony and with some friends, we were drinking not water and not cold brew, but something else. Obviously, I had one drink too many because I said, like, one of these cruise ships pulled out and I said, we should charter one of these cruise ships and put a heavy metal festival on. My friends were laughing, like, Andy, you're drunk, that's never going to work, like, people will fall overboard and, like, they will destroy the ship. So the next day I woke up, I had a big headache, but the idea was still there. And it took me several years to actually make it work. Two main obstacles. First of all, convincing a cruise line that, despite the stigma that is attached to heavy metal, metalheads are the nicest and friendliest people that you will ever meet. They will not destroy the ship and no nothing. The biggest obstacle was money, because you want to charter a cruise ship, it takes millions of dollars. Money that I didn't just have. Finding investors that invest into an idea that nobody has done before, that has no track record, that everybody thinks it's crazy, that was really not easy. So it took several years, but look, here we are. Short answer, I was drunk.
Okay, and it's 12 editions already.
Actually, next year is going to be the 15th in total. Now, unfortunately, we had a few years ago the pandemic. So it was, for 2 years, there was no 70,000 tons of metal. But we live in a new normal where we have new challenges around the world. But heavy metal is bigger. We have, you said this before, we call 70,000 tons of metal the United Nations of heavy metal at sea. This year, we set a new record. We had 81 nations on board. This makes 70,000 tons of metal. Everybody is the same, right? Doesn't matter what color your passport, what color your skin, what kind of ideas you have your life, what orientation you have. Everybody comes together for the love of the music. We have people coming from countries that are at a state of war right now. These people come all in this one ship for the love of heavy metal, having one peaceful party out in international waters. That makes me really proud.
For sure. And I understand both the audience and the musicians share spaces like the restaurant, bar, the hallways, even the elevators to go to the cabins. How's that?
That was kind of my idea from the beginning on. And the next day when I had a headache, I wanted to create something different. I realized very quickly it's almost impossible to create like a backstage area, a VIP area on a ship. So therefore also I said like, okay, we need so many musicians on board that it feels like everybody is a VIP, everybody is backstage. So I said, all right, for every musician, I don't want to have more than 10 fans. We started on a much smaller ship where I could sell about 2,000 tickets. I said like, okay, then we need 200 musicians. So the average band has 5 musicians, right? You know, some have 3 or 4, but there is these folk metal bands that have 12. Let's make it easy, 5. So 200 divided by 5 is 40. So we had 40 bands. Now we are in a much bigger ship. Actually, it's 154,000 tons, so it's more than double the 70,000 tons. 3,000 tickets, we need to have 300 musicians, so 60 bands. And we really celebrate this unity of no division. Not just that we are all from all around the world and we are all the same, but also the bands and the fans. Everybody is the same. We celebrate this already at the terminal when people board in Miami. Everyone, the musician from the biggest band or the paying customer in the cheapest cabin, everybody goes through the same door in the terminal. Everybody goes through the same security, through the same check-in. And once these people walk over that gangway and board the ship, something happens in their subconscious. They realize in the true sense of the meaning, we're all in the same boat. And like this, people also like have respect amongst each other. The bands to the fans to the bands. The musicians can roam around freely. They go to the same restaurants, the same bars. They sit in the same jacuzzis, and afterwards you hear these stories, right? You know, oh, yesterday I went to the elevator to go up to the restaurant, and there was Nurgle from Behemoth in the elevator. Or all these kind of stories. You sit in the jacuzzi, and there is some musicians from some famous band sitting next to you. Where else than in 70,000 tons of metal can you sit in a jacuzzi and watch Sepultura play? Mm-hmm. Only on 70,000 tons.
Yeah, for sure. And in the beginning, how did you get well-known bands to get the conditions? Because I believe in a ship, you need special treatment for the stage, the PA, and everything.
Not just my friends were laughing, everybody was laughing. The bands and their managers, they were laughing too. You know, it's like, this is crazy, Andy, it's not going to work. So when you look at the lineup from 2011, from the very first edition, almost all of these bands are bands that I used to work with as a promoter, as a tour manager, as an agent. So these bands, they knew Andy Pillar is probably a little bit crazy, but if he says something, he's going to do it and it's going to work. So they trusted me, you know. Afterwards, it became easier. Like, you know, bands talk amongst each other, you know, it worked. Still, for some bands, it took me many, many years and many meetings and maybe sometimes a little bit of drinking too, to convince them. Funny enough, those ones that were hardest to convince are the ones that once they did it, they immediately write or call back, hey, can we play next year again? Yeah, so, yes.
Okay. It's important to say that in 70,000 tons, we're a big representation of the Colombian metal.
Yes.
I know that Massacre, The Antichrist, Stadur, a lot of bands play there with the big names. For you, why Colombia is important to showcase in there?
Apart from me being also almost always so welcome here and feeling so much at home in Colombia, maybe I need to learn some Spanish to actually fit more in. Amongst all these nations from all over the world, Colombia, since the beginning, has been one of the 10 most represented nations on board the fans. So there is a very big, very vibrant metal scene in Colombia. But not just fans, there is an incredible amount of talent in this country too. And to pay tribute to not just our big followership in Colombia, but also to offer Colombian artists this world stage that 70,000 tons of metal is. We had a lot of Colombian bands over the years, and I will make sure that not just next year, but also in the future, we will always have Colombian representation in the lineup.
Wonderful. I dare to recommend you a band, this band, Random Revenge. It's an incredible band from a city near to Bogota. It's called Facatativá. They play a mixture between thrash and heavy metal. I love it.
I actually saw this band many years ago when I was here at Rock al Parque. Okay. I actually saw them. The list is always long, but they are still also on the list, you know, so like never give up hope. You know?
Wonderful, wonderful. And also, I recently spoke with George Agost, the leader for Estadur. Aside from the experience to play, he said me that feel well received in the ship. You know, sometimes promoters don't have the respect for the artists for that, and this is very important.
Look, as I described this before, this is our concept. This is my concept. Everybody is the same. Naturally, like if you are Emperor or Anthrax, you play on the bigger stage, you play at a better time. You probably, your stage time is longer. But everybody is the same. Also, all the bands are the same. We also do this in our advertising. All the logos, from the biggest bands to the smallest bands, they all have the same size. It's just an alphabetic listing. On 70,000 tons of metal, the original, the world's biggest metal cruise, everyone is the same.
Wonderful. I have never been in a ship. I want to know if in the high seas it's common to feel seasick, or maybe the beer is spilled when you are watching a beer. How about it?
First of all, we sail at probably the best time to sail the Caribbean. January, February, there are no hurricanes, no nothing like this. And these ships are massive. Our ship has over 154,000 tons displacement. That is bigger than an aircraft carrier. Okay. So even if there is some chop at sea, the ships have also stabilizers. It's like little wings that extend from the ship once we are at sea. When you are inside, you don't even feel anything, you know, nothing, you know. So, no, your water will not spill. Maybe if you're outside and you see the sea, there is a slight movement. But so far, we never really had any problems of anybody getting seasick. It's the best time to sail the Caribbean.
Nice. Aside from the possibility to see concerts all the time, I believe the bands play both times, right?
That is something special too. There is not many festivals that do something like this. Every band, all of these 60 plus bands, they play 2 shows. One time on the outbound, one time on the return trip, and always on 2 different stages. And I also make sure that when we create the running order, that 2 bands that play simultaneously, when they play their second show, they will not play against the same band again. So everyone has a fair chance to actually see every band, if they're crazy enough to do that. Some people actually are. Then they need maybe vacation after their vacation. And it's something special that most of the bands, they actually, if they not just vary, they actually play 2 completely different shows, 2 completely different set lists, you know. So this is something really special on 70,000 tons.
For sure. And aside from seeing the concerts and being in the pool, how other activities can you make there?
We have, of course, because of our fan-friendly scenario, every band has a meet and greet and signing session. So you don't need to run around with your records and get all the signatures from all the musicians. So you can go there, you can take your selfie, you can get all your memorabilia signed. We always go to one destination, and so for one day we are in port. This year we went to Jamaica. Next year we will go to Labadee. And there is a lot of excursions on board, so maybe you can go scuba diving with Creator, or you can go swimming with dolphins, with whatever band, So stuff like this. Then, of course, concerts, they go basically around the clock, I mean, they start at 10 o'clock in the morning, they go to 6 o'clock in the morning. So at some point, we also need time to clean the jacuzzis, and this and that. So there is a little window where there is no concerts. Still, some bars are actually open 24 hours a day. And there is some other activities too. Maybe you have a friend or your life partner that comes with you on the boat that is not so much into heavy metal. Well, you can get a massage on board, or you can get your nails done, or whatever. There is a library. There is a lot of things. This ship is so massive. You can also find areas outside on the deck where you don't even hear the music anymore. You can just lay back in a deck chair, watch the ocean, and enjoy life.
Wonderful. That's nice. What band do you dream to put on the ship?
It's hard to single out one band, right? Of course, sometimes it is hard to convince some bands. In the meantime, it became much easier because amongst the bands, and so they realize, 70,000 tons of metal is a heavy metal paradise. What is more a challenge is availability. Many bands I try for 10 years and it hasn't worked. Not because they don't want to play, but maybe they are on tour in Australia, or they are in the studio. Or some musicians, they don't just play in one band, they play in 3 different bands. So if one key musician is not available because he's out with his other band, it just never worked. But I like challenges. And as I always say, try again. One day, we'll have had them all.
Okay, wonderful. The next edition will be between January
29th. We sail January 29th out of Miami. They call themselves proudly the cruise capital of the world. And we sail to Labadee. And we don't bring you back to the real world until February 2nd, 2026, yes.
And when the bands will be announced?
We are just around the corner. So in about 2 weeks, we start announcing the lineup. People that know 70,000 tons of metal and have followed it, they will know this is maybe one of the biggest complaint. Andy, please announce the bands earlier. I made a promise 2 years ago. We actually started pretty well last year. Something happened in my private life that took me out for a while. So things still got very late last year. This year I will try to do better, and I will make sure that a much bigger part of the lineup is announced much, much earlier. 70,000 tons of metal follower don't like to hear me say soon, so I say much sooner. It's kind of an inside joke. And we also, soon after we announce the initial lineup, we also start selling our tickets. Interesting for people in Latin countries, we also have a Spanish customer service. We have a Spanish website. So if you go on our website, you can click on Spanish. Everything is there in Spanish. You can call our hotline. People answer the phone in Spanish. And about the lineup, as I said, I'll promise you there will be some Colombian representation in the lineup as well. Not just next year, but for the following years as well.
Perfect. For anyone who is watching this video and wants to be one of your survivors, as you call your passengers, and don't have visa, it's difficult, the process. Is time to achieve to the next cruise?
This is, of course, something that we do not have control over. So better apply for your US visa early. And if you don't get your visa in time, I promise you, there will not just be a 70,000 tons of metal in 2026. I will try to do this as long as I live. So there is also a next year, but yeah, get a visa appointment. You only need a tourist visa to get to the United States, and you're welcome on board.
Okay. You said this is for everybody. I know that it's people very old in the ship, maybe 18 years, I believe, and also kids.
There is like the age range really goes from 1 year to like the oldest passenger ever was like 83. Wow. So it's really a wide range, and there are actually families that bring their kids and they bring their parents. There is 60, 70, 80-year-old people that actually are metal fans. You wouldn't expect it, but there are. There are these beautiful family stories too. Because of our global audience, I know from people, don't just come from different countries, from different continents. They met on the ship, they got married, they got children, and now they come back to 70,000 tons of metal together with their children. Look, I have goosebumps, you know. This is so beautiful.
Beautiful, pure family. And finally, there is a lot of stories, a lot of bands, a lot of crazy people. Can you share us an anecdote?
There is so many crazy stories, as I said before, you know, from people that are like, not me, but from people that tell me these stories, you know, like getting in the elevator and there is Nurgle in the elevator, and afterwards they are sitting at the bar, maybe with Tom Angel Ripper from Sodom, you know, and having drinks. So much funny and interesting stories. I would more say, more than funny stories for me personally, it's this experience of bringing people from all over the globe together, from all these different nations, from different orientations, different races, and everybody comes together. When I stand on the side of the stage, especially the pool deck stage, we are proud to build the biggest open air stage structure to ever sail the open seas. Now, and a band is playing, and I look into all these happy faces, and now once again I have goosebumps. That makes me so proud. It makes me so happy. It gives me the energy to keep on doing this year after year.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing these stories. It's amazing what you did and what comes in the future. And thank you for being there in Alejandrosis. Finally, please invite the people to come to the 70,000.
First of all, thank you very much having me on Androsis and having me in your beautiful country of Colombia. It's a real pleasure. You guys, this is Andy, the skipper of 70,000 tons of metal, the original, the world's biggest heavy metal cruise. And it would be my humble pleasure to welcome you personally on board the United Nations of Heavy Metal at Sea next year on the 29th of January in Miami, Florida. Hope to see you there. Yeah.
Excellent. Amigos de Alejandrosis, pues ya lo saben, ahí están las palabras de Andy Pillar acerca de un barco como ningún otro, plena acción para todos los amantes del metal que se vayan programando. Sé que muchos ya conocen la experiencia, pero también unos cuantos se van a animar, varios se van a animar a estar ahí de enero 29 a febrero 2. En los comentarios, por favor, si tienen historias, si ustedes ya han ido, qué bandas les gustaría ver ahí, yo voy a estar muy atento. No olviden suscribirse al canal de Alejandrosis. Estuvimos aquí desde RPM. Muy pronto nos vemos con más de la música que nos gusta. Rock and roll.